Hello and welcome to this week's League One Lowdown show on the Det Network. My name is Sam and I, as always, joined by Callum. Good afternoon, Callum.
Good afternoon, Sam. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. We've got a different sort of show this week with absolutely zero League One action and League Two, and most of the National League not playing. We've gone with something different for this week. So we're going to look at last night's games. We had three League One games. We had Lincoln City beating Northampton Town, leaving it late. We had Stevenage losing at home to Bolton, and we had Stockport County smashing Reading. But before we get to any of that, we've got the old Predictions League, which last week, Callum, to be fair, after a poor couple of weeks, me and you did in terms of scores, we didn't do rather well getting the correct score. But out of the 12 League One games this week, we got 10 correct outcomes between us.
That's decent, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of getting to the point of the season where things are starting to settle down, the table's starting to kind of like stretch out a bit. And I thought last week it was quite an unpredictable. I mean, quite a few of the stronger teams were away from home, so there could have been quite a few away victories and that sort of thing. So, but to get 10 out of 12 games between us is all right. Although I think I brought up the rear end of that number.
Yes, so it wasn't too bad. I got 12 points and you got 9. If you're not sure how or not familiar with how this works, you get 3 points for a correct score and 1 point for a correct outcome at the end of the season. Whoever loses in terms of points out of myself or Callum will have to buy a shirt. So if I win, Callum has to buy an Orient shirt and wear it on the season roundup. If Callum wins, I have to buy a Lincoln City shirt and wear it on the season roundup. And what we might do is do a little giveaway at the end of the season as well. Once you've worn it on the review show, we'll give it away to a listener, but you have to be subscribed and following us on X, which is along the bottom of your screen. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and following us on X, because there will be some giveaways in the near future. So in terms
I would say we'd sign it, but that would probably decrease the value of it. That would decrease the resale value. So we're not going to do that.
So in terms of scores, I got 12 points and Callum got 9. So my 12 points come from 1 point for Bristol Rovers, Reading, Wycombe, Orient, Charlton, Wrexham, Bolton, Posh, Shrewsbury, Barnsley, and Blackpool, Wigan, with the correct scores being for Rotherham, Stevenage, and Huddersfield, Exeter. And Callum, you got your 9 points for one correct score with Shrewsbury and Barnsley, and then the rest being correct outcomes for Reading, Bristol Rovers, Wycombe, Orient, Northampton, Crawley, Huddersfield, Exeter, Lincoln, Stockport, and Bolton, Peterborough, which means the scores on the doors are I now have the 100 mark points, and you are sitting on 95. So it is still extremely close. One good week and one bad week flips it on its head. And as my statistical look at leagues is now becoming a bit more realistic, I suppose, after a slow start.
I mean, we could be near enough at the 400 point mark on the end of the season, which would be, we're getting into cricket territory here. So there we go.
Not if you're England, you'll be 96 for 7. So we'll start off with the recap of last night's games before getting into the main bulk of this episode, which will be looking at your team needs A. So we're going to we've got this really nice graph that was designed by a Birmingham City fan from X, which I have tweeted out. So go and check our Twitter if you want to have a look at it. And we're going to try and pick out a position or an area that a team needs to improve. So we'll use Barnsley as an example. They're 13 in terms of expected goals from open play. We think they need a creative midfielder. That's what it's going to be like. But before we get to that, last night's fixtures, Callum, I'll let you take the reins first because we're going to talk about Lincoln City winning back-to-back games.
Yeah, it was a weird game for Lincoln. They found themselves behind quite early on against Northampton side, who I think were, I don't want to say better than a lot of us expected. We kind of knew it was going to be a tough game. I don't know what it is with Lincoln at the minute. Maybe they need to tweak something, but they just never seem to be able to get themselves up for midweek games. I'd love to see their Tuesday versus Saturday comparison and win percentage, because obviously they had that Crawley loss midweek last week. They just always seem to do terribly. And it was a bit like that. They just, almost felt like they completely forgot to wake up to start early on. But then obviously Tom Hamer, it's just Lincoln City's centre-backs just seem to keep on scoring. I think they've scored the most amount of goals from set pieces in the league. So doing quite well, I suppose, in that regard. And And then obviously Hamer goes off injured, which I suppose wasn't ideal because it meant that Lewis Monsma, who we know his knees not made of the strongest material at all, but he's back. He's back, and he's a great player. But the player that I suppose really made the difference, I don't think he was anyone's man of the match, but it's Eric Gring, and I'm growing quite fond of this guy. He started a few games, and when he started, he's not been very impressive. But when he's come off the bench, his pace and energy when everyone else is tired is just second to none. He's just incredible. Obviously, getting that winner in the 88th minute with his first goal for the club, incredible. Gives Lincoln 3 points and up to 5th, which is not too shabby. I don't think. I think that's where a lot of Lincoln City fans would hope to end the season. So more of the same, please.
As for Northampton Town, they're sitting in 18th place, 5 points clear of the bottom four. With to be fair, they were on a decent little run themselves with 2 wins from their last 3, but the injuries and suspensions are especially hitting Northampton. They have McGeehan sent off a couple of weeks ago. He comes back into the team, and then Tyler Roberts gets sent off for kicking the ball away, which it's one of the things in football.
It's such a stupid red card.
Yeah.
If you watch it, it's so, and it's one of them that you obviously know that the ball's not even come to a stop. It's not like he's not really delayed the restart because there's probably a ball right there, but by the letter of the law, it's a second yellow, and he's off, and he knows as soon as he's done it that he's off because he can just see the referee walking slowly towards him. If you look at his reaction to knowing he's about to go for an early bath, I think where it happens, he's already by the dugout, so he just keeps walking to the tunnel. It's really funny, but yeah, not ideal for Northampton.
No, but John Brady's still doing an excellent job there. I think Northampton fans would take staying up again, especially I criticised their summer business quite not heavily, but I didn't think it was the best, especially after losing someone like Mark Leonard. But John Brady's working his magic there with them sitting in 18th place. Moving on to Bolton Wanderers, they've now lost one of their last 7 League One games, which was to Birmingham City. Now sitting in the playoff places just after a couple of weeks of us saying Ian Evatt must leave and Bolton fans exploding on social media. They seem to have got a little bit of their mojo back, and it's all down to a slight tweak in system that Mr. Evatt has done. So instead of playing 2 out-and-out strikers, he still plays Adebayo, he still plays Collins, but now what he's doing, he's not playing 2 up front with 1 off. He's now created a box midfield just off the striker, so they're a lot more compact. A lot of their goals, Bolton, were through the centre of the pitch and getting overloaded. So what he's done, he's dropped Collins 10 yards further deeper to get on the ball deeper. But when they lose the ball in transition, they're set up properly to defend the centre of the pitch, which they were really poor at. So a little tweak has worked wonders for Ian Evatt. It's not working well, though, for Stevenage at the moment. We are well aware that they have a lot of injuries in the centre of defence, with Piergiani and Wilding playing at centre-back yesterday. But it is now 1 win in 5. They're the lowest scorers in the league with 10, but they are third, looking at the table now, 4th best defence in the league, conceding just 15. But goal scoring is a huge, huge, huge problem. And if you look at their squad on paper, obviously Jamie Reid's not hit the heights as he did last season. The players off of Jamie Reid, I don't think are that League One quality. So I still believe, and I think us 4 as hosts put Stevenage in the bottom 4, if I'm not mistaken.
I think on average, it was going down.
So I still think that will happen, unless in January they go and get a goal scorer. Obviously, it's a very
there's already a 7-point buffer there to the drop zone, but that can erode quickly.
Yeah,
on Ian Evatt, I think we said that not that he should go. I think a lot of us were saying that his tactics have become stale, which I mean, the fact that, like you say, he's slightly tweaked the system, I suppose that kind of gets around the fact that he should resign and a new manager comes in, because if you just make those little tweaks, and that's what separates the good managers and the great managers. I'm not saying Ian Evatt is a great manager just yet, but just that ability to slightly tweak your system, know when you need to make a small change. And if that's what he's done, and that if that's what gets you at the table, that's what gets you at the table. It might slightly veer away from some of your philosophies as a manager, I suppose, originally, but you have to adapt, you have to move on. That's what football is. 10 years ago, 5 at the back wasn't really a thing, and now you barely see a team that doesn't play it. So things change.
Yeah, 100%. So moving on to Stockport, they also won 4-1 against Reading, who themselves are still having a decent season, sitting in 9th place. We'll get on to what Reading need a little bit later. But for Stockport, they've now got, that was their first win in 4 after 3 draws and a loss in their last 5, sitting in 10th place. Still a pretty solid start to the season for Stockport. They just need to turn them draws into a couple of wins. And who knows, they could be well in the playoff hunt at the end of the season.
Yeah, Stockport, they bounced back from defeat. I think a lot of their fans, I was watching a few videos over the weekend, and a lot of their fans were quite disgruntled with the goalkeeping situation and whatnot. So I think Blackpool were in the what's it called, the top 6 before play last night. So dropping out of those top 6 is never ideal, but then again, no Reading fan would have expected to be there. So I don't think you can really criticise them. I think I don't want to say they're only there because of just how tight the league is, but none of us expect Reading to be there, and that's not because the club's bad or any disrespect to them. That's purely just because of circumstance. So both teams doing well. I think Stockport, obviously, I don't think any match is ever really a 4-1 win, so maybe that was slight flattery on Stockport. I didn't really watch the game because I was working as always, but a decent result, and every team has a blip, and Stockport might be coming out of theirs.
Yeah, especially when you've got a player like Louis Barry in your team, who's now got 9 goals this season in the league. I believe he is now the league's top scorer as well. Someone to provide that little bit of magic that not many League One teams, I don't think, have this season.
It was quite funny in our chat. Someone said that will he ever stop Louis Barry? And he seemed to be quite quiet at the weekend, but that might just be a slight bias on Lewis Montsma's part there.
Right, so moving on to the bulk of this week's show, we're going to go through every single League One club. This is going to test mine and your knowledge here, Callum, as well. And it's your team needs a question mark. So what does your team need in the next 3 quarters of the season? Because we're roughly a quarter of the way through the season already, which is rather alarming.
Some teams are well over it.
Yeah. So I think we've got a gist of how the season's now going to play out, and you can start to identify patterns. So what does each team need? We've mentioned Barnsley and the need for a creative player, sitting 13th in expected goals from open play and sitting just outside the playoffs in 8th. Is there anything else, Callum, that you think that Barnsley could do with?
I mean, it's the thing is, you don't want to really repeat yourself so much at this, because a lot of the teams will be struggling for this, but just that bit of consistency. I don't know whether it's just experience in this league or whatnot, but you just want, you don't want to be win. You look at the last 6, it's draw, lose, win, draw, win. There's not much consistency there. And I think that's kind of crucial for them. And if you have that consistency, we've seen a lot of teams go up and down this year in terms of form. If you have that consistency, you don't need to be winning every game, but as long as you're not losing and you're ticking over, that's important. I'll probably repeat myself quite a bit because that applies for a lot of teams in this league. But Barnsley, especially to me, 1 minute they're up there, the next minute they're down there. So
yeah, there was a bit of I think a couple of weeks ago, wasn't there, with Darryl Clark and rumours coming out about him losing his job, which would have been totally nuts, to be honest. You can't sack a manager after 2 weeks or whatever it was. So, so that's Barnsley. I'm sure Seb will have a better input in knowledge on Barnsley. If you want to get involved at League One Lowdown, and I'll direct it Seb's way. So next is Birmingham City. Birmingham pretty much dominate most of the statistics we've got here. Top in possession, second for goals for. They're actually 9th in expected goals, 9th in expected goals from open play, 2nd in expected goals against, 1st in shots against. They don't lose the ball in their own half. They're 21st for that. The only thing I think Birmingham possibly need, there's 2 things I've identified. One is a goalkeeper, because I don't rate Bailey Peacock-Farrell at all. Mistake prone, and if they do go up, which it looks like they will,
he's
they
not
need
a championship goalkeeper.
He's not a championship goalkeeper, in my opinion. Too many individual errors. Ryan also, I saw one of the goals at the weekend, who I can't remember who they played. I think it was Mansfield. Was it Lee Gregory's free kick that I think he should have saved, or it was a goal the week before he should have saved one? It was at his near post. I felt he should have saved that. So that's obviously being very picky about what they need. If you look at statistics, they probably want a set piece. They want a James Ward-Prowse-esque League One player sitting 16th for set pieces.
They also want someone to defend it. That's what, like, you want a set piece. I mean, obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of the Birmingham coaching staff, but a decent set piece coach, not only for attacking set pieces, but just learning how to defend them. I mean, we saw with Lincoln I think it was the second time they conceded a long throw. It was the second game in a row. Teams are going to pick up on that. If you can't organise your defence for a set piece in League One, you're going to get ripped to shreds by certain teams in the Championship. So just invest. We see how important set pieces coaches are now. They're like a vital part of the like everyone used to laugh at them. There was an interview where I think Tom Shaw, Lincoln City assistant coach, was joking about Scott Fry, who's our set piece coach, and about the flack that he gets for his job. But again, he acknowledged that it's a crucial part. If you'd have said to your PE teacher growing up, just saying, "I want to teach people how to take the perfect corner in football," you might get a few laughs at that, but it's a vital part of the game, and Birmingham need a decent one of them, I think.
Yeah, set pieces are becoming more and more of a factor, especially in the lower leagues, when teams are tactically quite good nowadays, especially out of possession. So set pieces are becoming a big part of, especially the modern game. Like you look at Arsenal, for example, the amount of goals world-class teams now score from set pieces, and these little tweaks that they identify and weaknesses. So yeah, there's not much weakness in Birmingham. That's just us being incredibly picky.
Yeah.
Blackpool, sitting in 16th place, very, very hot and cold, I think it's fair to say, so far this season. I think it's easy to say they probably need some sort of defensive reinforcements. Going forward, Blackpool are exceptional. Open play, expected goals, they're first. They're 7th for possession. They should, based on expected points, they should be 7th. But they're 3rd in terms of XG against. They're 3rd in terms of high recovery, so they're extremely good at picking the ball high up the pitch, but they're extremely terrible in their own half. They are the team that lose the ball most in their final third with high recoveries against. They're second. They are 19th for set piece expected goals for, so another one which doesn't probably utilise set pieces. Maybe that's because of the height they've got in their team. I'm not sure how tall Blackpool defenders are, but maybe they need a big 6'5" Aidan Flynn, for example, just heading corners in at the back post.
I mean, for me, it's. I don't want to say go back to basics, but you've got the quality because you showed it when Steve Bruce originally came in, right? You don't have a new manager bounce unless the players are good enough to have a bounce, right? So I don't know what has really happened. Obviously, we know what's gone on with Steve Bruce and whatnot. So I suppose we can't really draw too much on that, but just go back to basics. Do the basic things that you're required to as a footballer correctly. Stay in line as you bat for, check your runners, know where your forward players are going, have that team chemistry. Else, you're not going to pick up results, and that will be exploited. So Blackpool, just go back to basics and understand what it is that you're doing.
Yep. Moving on to 6th place. Bolton Wanderers. They're a really difficult team to gauge now, Bolton, because they have picked up and they do have. I think they've got quality everywhere. To be honest, Bolton. They've got 2 very good goalkeepers in Baxter and Southwood, who's recently stepped in. they don't lack really. Like, there's not a major area of concern that I don't think for Bolton. I think they just go with what I don't personally think Bolton need to sign anyone in January at this moment. That's obviously injury dependent, but I personally don't think Bolton actually need anything.
The only thing I'd say is goal difference. It's not necessarily they need to bring someone or something in, because we know they've got the goal scorers, and they are leaking a few goals. 19. No one else in the top 8 has conceded more than them. I don't think. And Barnsley have conceded 18. Lincoln have conceded 16, and as of Wycombe, but 19 is a lot of goals to be conceded at this time of the year if you want to be considered for a playoff chasing side. So you just need to build that goal difference. The amount of times we see it as being important towards the end of the season, and I suppose to have 3, it's again the lowest goal difference in the top 7, although they are 6th, so I suppose that makes sort of sense. But just build that goal difference. You've got the players, you've got the forwards, you've got the defenders to do it. So just build it now.
Bristol Rovers, the worst team defensively in terms of expected goals conceded in League One this season. I'm pretty sure you can see where that one I'm taking it. A defender. Josh Griffiths has bailed them out numerous times so far this season. Has arguably been one of the best goalkeepers in League One this season. I think going forward they're okay. They've got Shaq Ford, they've got Promise on a chair, they've got Ross Turiu, so decent. They've got Chris Martin, who I think is injured as well. So they've got decent forwards. They've got Jamie Lindsay and Camille Conte in midfield. That's generally okay. In terms of the gaps between their midfield and defence, they are quite large. So people like Keelan Dunn, who are extremely clever, can pick up these spaces. So maybe a little tactical alteration for Bristol Rovers. But I think a defender will probably be high on their list based on that sort of statistic.
I mean, defenders, yeah. But also, you just want a goal scorer. I mean, like, how many times have we seen just like a really bad side that stays afloat because they've got a good number 9? Bristol Rovers' top goal scorer in all competitions only has 3 goals. That's Scott Sinclair. So you just need to be able to. I don't want to say you want to have someone to rely on goals, because if you're at the bottom of any division, you're not going to have someone who you're able to rely on. You just need a goal scorer who, in those crucial moments, going into the last 20 minutes of the game, that experience to just keep your head and get the goal.
Yep. I think Bristol Rovers they're a pretty solid League One team now, but in terms of stats, in terms of expected points, 20th, they should be 22nd for possession, which is not something you associate with a Matt Taylor sort of team. XG against, as I said, they're last. Shots against, they're 23rd. Set piece XG against, they're the worst team in the division. So lots to be pondered at, especially out of possession at Bristol Rovers. Moving on to the team who are bottom in League One, Burton Albion. Can they just sign another 23 new players? Is that possible? I mean, where do you start with Burton? Obviously, they need a manager first and foremost.
Yeah.
Possession stat. There's 3 stats that we've got on this list that are green. One is set piece XG against, so they're very good at that. One is XT4, which I'm not overly sure what that is, and one is and they're 5th for possession. They're the 3 stats, which don't overly mean, so they're doing set pieces correctly, but not much else.
I mean, obviously the main thing is a manager. I mean, there's not really anything else you need at this point. Just get a manager in. You just need to stop, because there's like you go into all this detail about all the individual stats. On the face of it, the stats put them where they are, but they're not. It's not like they're not scoring goals. You have to go up to Northampton in 18th for a side who have scored more than them. They're just conceding goals, and it's this rut. And you feel like they've probably got the players to stop it, because you don't, do you know what I mean? If you swing a baton 25 times at a pinata, 23 times at a pinata with a blindfold on, you're probably going to hit it once or twice. So they've probably got 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 good enough players, and sometimes that's all it takes. in
It's a bit of
League
probably,
One to get out of it.
it's probably a mentality thing as well, isn't it? They still haven't won a game, so when they are leading or get back into a game, it's do they have the mentality to try and grind it out at the moment? Which once they win a game will probably come and they'll probably get a bit of confidence, but they're so low on confidence, it probably doesn't help.
I mean, Stephen Schumacher's favourite for that at 4 to 5,
Yes.
followed by
Which would
Gareth
be,
Ainsworth. So,
well, I mean, they'd both be excellent appointments. I think Stephen
100%.
Schumacher, obviously, at Stoke, did an excellent job at Plymouth. And Gareth Ainsworth, we know his qualities in League One with I'm not going to say Burton has got a small budget, but with a smaller budget, we know how good he is, especially what he did at Wycombe.
She'll have to see.
So moving on to a team that were in dire straits, shall we say, to a team that's now won 3 in a row and kept 3 clean sheets, winning their relegation 6-pointer against Burton last week. Cambridge United. So I think it's fair to say that Cambridge probably still need a goal scorer, as most teams at the bottom of League One do.
Will do, yeah.
But Cambridge, in terms, I know I'm going to keep referring to this chart because I really love it. It's brilliant. So kudos to the person who made it. Again, if you want to find it, it's on our Twitter page. Cambridge United will be 13th in terms of expected points. So statistically, they're a mid-table team. They're not. The only stat they're in the bottom 4 for is goals. It's the only stat they're in the bottom 4 for. So maybe Cambridge use a data approach for looking at things, which is why they didn't sack Gary Monk. But I said it on Twitter at the time. It's fair play to the board for keeping faith, fair play to the players, fair play to everyone at that club for so quickly turning it around.
I mean, with Cambridge, whatever they need to do, just don't change what they're doing now. If that makes sense. I mean, I don't follow Cambridge as much as some of their fans probably do. But whatever you've tweaked in the last 3 games, I don't know what it is, whether it's part of your routine or whatever it is, just do not change that at all because it seems to be working, and I suppose that's all that matters.
Yeah, so we are going to quickly go to an ad break now, and then we'll come back and finish off League One. Okay, and welcome back to the second half. So we're going to start off with Charlton Athletic, obviously sitting in mid-table now after a pretty good start like they had last year, and they've fallen away like they did last year. And the underlying stats, out of possession, they're pretty good. They put a lot of crosses into the box. Again, do Charlton have a natural goal scorer? No. I like Matt Godden, but he's now at a point in his career where he's not going to score you 25 goals, 20 goals in this league, which most of the top teams have. Like Birmingham have got 2. Wycombe, I firmly believe, have 2. Wrexham have 5 strikers that can all score 10, so that's okay. Lincoln, their centre-halves score 20 a season, so that's okay. Bolton have 4 strikers that can get 10 to 15. I think every team at the top has that, and I think that's what a top club like Charlton would lack.
I think they just need to build in that consistency. I think is probably the best way of describing it. They just don't seem to be able to, like, I don't want to say put a run of form together, but I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because okay, they've drawn the last 3, I think. Like just something like that. They had 3 draws in a row. Yeah, 3. They've drawn the last 3. I suppose that is the definition of average consistency. But it just needs to be those draws. You'd rather have a win and 2 draws than 3 draws. Obviously, yeah. I suppose that's a bit of a Michael Owenism. So just I don't know. Just a bit more positivity as well, maybe with Charlton. I feel like they sometimes get crushed under the weight of their own ambition a lot of the time, and need to realise that they're not, because they've been in the Premier League and the Championship before, that's not a right. They still have to perform it. They still have to get to that level, I think.
Okay. Obviously, we are trying to give as much detail as we can before we move on to teams, but we've got a strict schedule to try and follow. So a little bit about everyone. Crawley Town. They're a difficult one to say what they need, because losing your manager in Scott Lindsay, who was a little genius there, to be honest, with what he did last season. And then he his promoted team gets completely obliterated because one of the owners leaves and then comes back, and then it was a bit of panic stations with recruitment. Expected points, they should be 18th. High recoveries, they are 20th. High recoveries against the 22nd. Least crosses into the box. Least passes into the penalty area per possession. Lowest, other than Burton, in set piece XG. So again, I think some sort of wide creative player was probably be needed for Crawley.
I think for me, it's just a strong January. They just need a decent January. I mean, they know they've got the core of the squad because they started off so well, but they just need a decent month. Bring in a few players who are strong, maybe some Premier League loans to just have that bit of pace, and that's all. That can turn your fortunes very quickly.
Yeah, Exeter City. I think the league's surprise package this season. I know they're sitting in 11th, but I didn't expect Exeter City to be doing this well. Defensively, absolutely outstanding. They look organised. Very, very difficult team to beat. The only thing, again, you could probably say for Exeter is Josh McGuinness, Sonny Cox going to get you the goals to push you to that next level in terms of getting a top 10 probably finish for Exeter? Probably not. They're a team that grind out, obviously, 1-0s with. They've got really good technical players in midfield. I really like the Ryan Woods, Ed Francis balance in the centre. So again, probably another sort of creative, advanced player, I think, would probably be best for Exeter.
We're kind of seeing with Exeter the same thing that we kind of saw last year, where they're really good in peaks and then not bad in troughs, but can't get a result, and sometimes that just crushes you, and it can damage your confidence. They just need to. I don't want to say consistency because that's not the word, but they just need to be a bit more stable. So it's a bit of difference, just if you make your lows a little less low and keep your highs as high as they are, of course you're going to lose games sometimes, but I imagine now they're probably going to lose their next two games or so because that's what Exeter do. Sometimes they lose like 4 games in a row and then they'll win and go unbeaten in 6. That's kind of a mentality thing at the minute. So just a slight change in that would work wonders, I think.
Okay. Moving on to Huddersfield Town. Statistically, the best team in the division. It's difficult to know with Huddersfield, isn't it? Because they had such a good start, and then they lost 4 in a row, and you're thinking, oh, the negative activity has come back from last season, and now they're good. They're picking up results again. So, do I think they lack in any area of the pitch? Again, I think they lack another striker. I don't think Freddie Ladapo, who they've bought in, is that player to be their main man. They've got Callum from West Ham, but the problem with loanees, I've always said this, as good as the loan market can be, and they've got a good one in Callum Marshall, who's a brilliant finisher. He could be recalled at any time by West Ham, sent to a championship club. That's the problem with these sort of players doing so well at League One level. West Ham go, oh, he's outgrown this level now. We're going to recall him and send him on loan to a championship club. I
just think they need to, like you say, the best in the majority of areas, right? So you just need to convert that. It's we always speak about how data comes true and whatnot, but they just need to show that data is real. I mean, it's as simple as that, innit? Show that data speaks the truth.
Yeah. So speaking of data speaking the truth, Leyton Orient are next. My team, Orient. I don't particularly like talking about us, but in terms of expected points, we're 22nd. Goals scored, 23rd. Shots, 23rd. Expected goals, 23rd. But out of possession, we're really good. High recoveries, we're first. We're the best team at winning the ball high up the pitch. Set pieces, expected goals against, we're the best in the league at defending set pieces. What do I want from Orient? I want I call it a penalty box striker. Someone who, when you've got players like Jordan Graham coming back from injury, who put crosses across the 6-yard box, someone to tap it in, because that obviously counts as a cross, which we are 10th for, I believe. We put enough crosses into the box, but nobody is ever on the end of them, which then obviously doesn't count towards your expected goals or a chance created, because no one's got on the end of it or had a shot at the end of it. So I would really, really like a penalty box striker. We've got a hell of a lot of low knees that haven't really paid off this year. I'd probably send one of the goalkeepers back. I'd send Jamie Donnelly back to Spurs. There's probably a couple others who have slipped my mind, but we really, really need a penalty box striker. Someone's getting the end of the crosses. Send Sonny Perkins back as well. Get someone in who's going to be on the end of your crosses to score. Just even if they got you 10 goals between January and the end of the season, that'd probably be enough to just keep you up. And that's got to be our aim, I think, for the rest of the season now.
I think that sums it up pretty nicely. So I'll move on to Lincoln, my team, because I don't think I've got anything to add on that one. Lincoln, for me, I don't know what I would change, really. The only thing I change is just that bit of consistency against teams lower than you. It's always seemed to be our Achilles heel. So just to get rid of that bit of complacency, maybe, and just have, I don't know, have that dressing room figure, that almost, I don't want to say Johnny Evans type figure, because that's like Pordy O'Connor, I suppose, in a way, but you just want a Johnny Evans type who is really strict, but also nice to be around, but just knows that you can't be complacent, is willing to shout and give it all for the team, and avoids these slip-ups, because, without that Crawley defeat, we'd be second. Without that terrible, we'd be second and ahead of Wycombe. So, that, and that's what matters. So, yeah, I'd say that.
Okay. Moving on to Mansfield Town. Callum, your favourite team to talk about.
My favourite team. Can you get new fans, please?
So, in terms of Mansfield, they should be expected points. They're 14th. Shots against, they're 24th. So they are the worst team in the league.
Yes, the worst team in the league.
If I'm reading this correctly, they are 14th for shot, 24th for shots against. And the reason I think I'm reading this correctly is Burton are 20th. So I'm going off. I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah.
They're also 22nd for XG against from open play. So they're pretty poor, shall we say, out of possession of Mansfield.
So we said for Huddersfield it was make sure the stats tell the truth. So for Mansfield, it's make sure the stats tell a lie and go all fake news. Fake news.
So do we think they could keep it up for the rest of the season? I think they need a centre half. They're currently playing Jordan Bowery at centre half, when I remember watching Jordan Bowery when he was at Orient and playing up front, and then he got converted to a right back, and now he's a right centre half. So he's a number 9 at right centre half, and that just winds me up.
Well, no, that needs changing straight away. Your team needs a new kit, man. if he's playing as number 9,
get a new kit,
man. Get a new kit, man.
So moving on to Northampton Town, who statistically are the worst team in the division. Expected points there, they actually bottom. Worst for XG4, worst G for open play XG4, 20th for possession. I mean, it's very difficult to judge Northampton because of the amount of injuries they have, but they've got a striker in Tom Eaves, who's relatively proven at League One level.
He came off injured yesterday, so he might not be about.
And they're 23rd for crosses into the box, and when you've got a striker like Tom Eaves, you're going to get the ball wide and get the ball in the box, so it could be just literally a tweak. Play to Tom Eaves' strengths, who's your main striker, and they may well just got some more goals.
I suppose other than a new medical team or reinforcements to your medical team that can, make sure your players don't get injured, I'd mainly say just a mentality. And this is not me saying you don't have the mentality, but it's just being able to keep you cool. Like we saw with Tyler Roberts yesterday, he lost his mentality when he just threw the ball away. And, it's small things like that seemingly on the surface are harmless, but then they cost your players for the next, 25 minutes when you include injury time. And then also, obviously it's difficult to play with 10 men. And I'm not saying I expected you to remain the draw, but just having that composure to sit behind the ball. You did it for the majority of it. You did it for 13 minutes. Just keep that up. It's a mistake that gives Lincoln that goal. I'm going off last night mainly, but just have that mentality and the composure, really.
Okay, moving on to Peterborough United. They've got a new striker joining in January. And the only other thing I think Posh probably need, because I think you've mentioned it a number of times, they are a very bipolar side, is probably an experience. They're not going to buy one, but they need an experienced head in defence. I think
they just need to grow up. I mean, I don't. It's as simple as that. Just grow up. I mean, as much as we love watching football, and Peterborough's games are clearly very entertaining, but this isn't like five-a-side or Sunday League. This is League One football. There's kind of an air of professionality about it that you kind of expect. And if you're conceding 26 goals at this point in the season, that's not playoff form at all. So just sort it out.
Moving on to Reading, I think this one's going to be nice and short. The only thing
Yeah.
Reading need is a new owner.
And a new contract for your manager as well. Bloody hell.
100%, yeah. If any
yeah.
Reading fans are interested in coming on and speaking about how your club has been defected by this horrible person, get involved on Twitter. Drop me a DM and I shall get back to you, because we are interested to hear more about this Reading situation. It's something that we feel that deserves more media coverage than is currently getting. Moving on to Rotherham United, sitting in 14th place, extremely inconsistent, I think it's fair to say. 6th for expected points. If I was Steve Evans, I would be looking for some injection of pace into my team in January.
Yeah. It's either you go the full Steve Evans way, or you just get a 7-foot lump of a striker. Either way, you need kind of an extreme, don't you? You either need a very fast or a very tall bloke. Erling Haaland might do, but I suppose that'd do for any team.
Yeah, I've watched Rotherham a number of times, and they are, obviously, a Steve Evans team is a bit one-dimensional. They play off second balls, but you just want a bit of explosive pace. Malik Wilks has got it to an extent, but especially in the forward line, I just don't think they've got enough of it. Shrewsbury Town, one of the only teams to actually be in the position they are expected to be in 23rd place. It's very difficult to say what Shrewsbury need, because
a bit of everything.
A bit of everything, and it's no fault, I don't think, of Paul Hurst, because he's doing a job with what he's got, and what that is, I think, is arguably the lowest budget in League One. He's got a bunch of probably League Two players, and I think that his transfer business was summed up in the summer when they signed Harrison Biggins, and then immediately, near enough, shipped him out to League Two after a couple of League One games, realising he wasn't good enough. And that about sums Shrewsbury up at the moment.
Just need a bit of, you say a bit of investment, but clearly that's not
there. Stevenage is next. I think we've touched on Stevenage earlier on. We're pretty sure they need some sort of goal scorer.
They just need to escape the shadow of Steve Evans as well. I don't know if that's just a me mentally thing, but they're kind of still in the shadow of Steve Evans. So that's what I'd say. Develop your own philosophy outside of him.
So the final 4 teams, Stockport County. I don't think they need anything. I think they've got players returning from injury, and we glossed on it a little bit earlier. You've got quality in people like Louis Barry. I still think Corey Adai will come good. I know there's been a bit of, as you mentioned, a bit of stuff over their goalkeepers.
Yeah, that's all I'd say, is just resolve the goalkeeping situation.
At the end of the day, it's a team still learning. There was a lot of overhaul in the summer with new players. I really like their squad. It just needs to find the blend, and I think Stockport will be okay. And then we've got the 3 Ws: Wigan, Wycombe, Wrexham. So based on expected points, and I'm going to dish this out because I really want to, with Wrexham, they're 17th in expected points. Massively overachieving, like big time.
Yeah.
Wycombe, best team I've watched this season. I went to Wycombe on Saturday and bawled my eyes out. Wycombe, 2 excellent strikers, Daniel Doa and Kone, excellent. And they've just got, they know they're good at what they do, Wycombe. I don't think they've got a player who is a standout player. They're a very good team. They do game management exceptionally well. They get a chance and they finish that chance. Very well organised. 2 really big burly centre halves. A decent goalkeeper as well. I just think Wycombe, again, just keep hold. You've got to keep hold of Cameron Humphreys on over Ipswich in January. That's probably your main one. Wrexham, I don't think there's any issues with your squad because you've got experience all over the pitch. But you are at 17th in expected points, so something's not quite right there. But I didn't expect that with Wrexham because I don't think their underlying numbers have ever been too strong. And then Wigan, I think, a striker, 9th in expected points, so there's not too much going wrong.
They're not scoring many either. They're also not conceding many, so maybe just that transition play to kind of direct everything forward, I imagine, would be ideal for Wigan. But Wycombe and Wrexham, I suppose, being second and third, there's not much you can improve on.
No, and I think that is a very quick
end
and playthrough of 24 teams of what we think they need. Obviously, we'd love to go into them in more detail, but unfortunately, we can't sit here for 2 hours and bore your ears to death of us trying to talk about your club. So we've tried to give you a little bit of everything, and then let us know your thoughts in the comments. Tweet us at League One Lowdown to let us know your thoughts. When you're in the comment section on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. We're on the road to 300 subscribers, and we want to get there as fast as possible. So make sure you do click that subscribe button. And while you're getting involved in our Twitter, make sure you click the follow button to keep up to date with all the League One news and when our podcasts go out. But thank you to Callum, and thank you again for listening. Take care, and